Kemi Badenoch is attempting to realign the public's perception of the Conservative Party at large, and indeed of the public's perception of herself, Kemi Badenoch. So she was with Camilla over the weekend giving an interview, and I thought there was a couple of salient points which go to show how Kemi Badenoch is attempting to have a go, if you like, at the Reform Party, how she's taking the fight to reform, and she raises a really, really valuable question, which is, does reform have the necessary wherewithal and capability to actually form a government and run the country? Do they have the necessary credentials to do that? And that's what Kemi Badenoch is attempting to pose the question to the public. Would you trust reform to run the country? I mean, it's a decent enough question, and this is how the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch are going to be pushing this particular thing forward.
This is about who's going to run local services. I've been, as you say, everywhere, Warwickshire, Gloucestershire, Oxfordshire, and I'm listening to what people on the doorsteps are saying. They are still very angry, but this time they're not angry with Conservatives. They're angry with Labour. Labour has let them down. They're very angry about the winter fuel payment. Every other doorstep, and it's not just pensioners, it's their children, their grandchildren are angry about it. And I'm telling them that this is a chance to send Labour a message. If you vote for other parties, Labour slips through the middle. You look at what's happened in Birmingham, rubbish all over the streets, not being collected, rats running around. And you have to vote Conservative because we deliver better services for lower taxes across the board.
Reform on 25, Labour on 23, Tory on 22, Lib Dems on 14, Greens on 9. I mean, this whole third place thing, you are being outgunned by Farage. You have to admit that. And also he is cutting through, isn't he? Is this big personality on the front pages of the newspapers?
Well, I'm on the front pages of the newspapers too. But the thing is, people are in a protest mood right now. So protest parties do well this side of the electoral cycle. 4 years ago, Keir Starmer had a horrific election. That was when we were polling high, middle of the vaccine bounds. He was completely written off. Today, he is Prime Minister. So the elections shouldn't be used as an opinion poll. People should not vote for them in that way. I need to make sure that I fix my party. People are very disillusioned, and I'm letting them know that the Conservative Party is under new leadership. No more of what was happening in the past, no more of the infighting and all of the rows. It's the other parties who are having all these rows and infighting. All right. But also reminding them that what we do is for them. It's not for us. We're delivering for the public.
That message there is a message of competence. It's the message that says the adults are now back in the room and we're taking care of business under new management, etc. I quite liked her way that she dismissed the reform movement and Nigel Farage in a typically Tory-esque way by essentially saying, oh yes, well at this point in the electoral cycle, protest parties do tend to have their time in the sun. And she delivered that in true Tory fashion. So, if nothing else, we can definitely say, yes, Kemi is a true blue. If ever I've saw one, she is a natural born Tory. With regard to her general point, and I think this is a real talking point, there is a question which overhangs reform, and it's this. Let's say that reform were to get voted in. Are you really telling me that you believe that they understand the workings of government well enough to effectively run the country? Now, when you're talking about something like a deep state, there is a deep state exists, but in some ways there's part of that deep state exists because the country has to keep moving along. And so the Tories, regardless of what you think of them, they understand government. They know how to run a government. They're very well practiced at it. They have their own way that they look at things within the party. There's a structure, a formal structure. They've been there forever. They are the Tories. And, that's what they represent. a competence and understanding that business is important and we need to be reducing this and doing that and just generally being Tories. That's what the Tory party represents. And what would happen if Reform swept into power at the next election, in 28, 29? What would happen if Reform did move into power? Very, very difficult to run a country, and you would need to know how to do it. And this is the question that Kemi Badenoch is rightly asking. Does the Reform Party have the necessary competence with which to be able to run the country as well as the Tories can? And I think what Kemi's aiming at here, she knows that in 2, 3, 4 years, if this Labour Party continues the way it is, that they're going to be extremely hated by the next election, and people are going to be left with a straight-up choice between Farage the showman with all of the bits of promises over here about deportations with Nigel, or the competence and the old school of the Tories taking care of business and sorting the country out. And these are legitimate points which should be played out on the right, and it's a legitimate question. And right at this moment, you would have to say that no, Reform doesn't have the necessary capability with which to run a government. And the Tories do. So, yeah, fair enough. And I think one of the other things is that Kemi there, she's showing that she's now growing into this role, and she's going to, make a pitch for this role. She's certainly competent. She appears to be, quite strong-willed. She knows her own mind. She can talk on a range of topics. She's an impressive woman in her own right, Kemi Badenoch. And, could it be that she was the best choice for the leader of the Tories? I suppose only time will tell. But at least she's coming out here with quite a sensible talking point. Rather than, as she said, getting involved in TV politics. Certainly, interesting interview, I thought. Anyway, thanks very much for your time.